Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of Talking Away the Taboo. I am thrilled tonight to be going live and bringing you Aimee Getz from Day One Fertility. She has a really fascinating, interesting, and just extremely surprising, I'll use that word, surprising fertility story that led her down the road to egg donation. Twists and turns like all fertility stories. I think, none of us in this fertility space, none of us who are trying to build our family think that we're ever going to be in this place. We think that we're going to be able to build our family when we want, how we want, and then for some reason it doesn't happen that way. So let's bring on Aimee. I saw that she's here. Let's see if I can grab her here. Questions for me or for Aimee, please reach out. Here she is. You can put the questions here. Here she is.
Hi.
You can put the questions right here in the comments, or you can send them anonymously through the, whole Insta Live thingamajig. But Aimee, so, okay. I, let's go back for 5 seconds. I want to explain how we met, and then we'll get right into your story.
Sure.
So we met because we actually met through Baden Colt, who is the founder of Not My Tummy. She's another amazing woman in the Canadian fertility space. I'll let you share a little bit about her, your relationship to her, and then like jump right in. Jump
Sure.
right in.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I just wanted to also say that, can everyone hear me okay? Are we good? Okay,
I
okay.
can hear you great. Yeah.
Um, this is the first time I'm really talking about my fertility in this way. I'm really open. I have a podcast, like I have a whole thing. But I just wanted to thank you for bringing this to life for me because I haven't yet. The egg donor and this part of my story is very, very new. And so I just want to thank you for having me tonight. Um, yeah, so I know Baden because she kind of is a leader in Canada around in the surrogacy space. And she's been a big support of Day One, and I refer clients to her that are in surrogacy. And she has just launched this really cool service where she's like helping people with matching and their social media presence, which I think is so interesting. When you're looking for a surrogate, I think one of the hardest parts is like doing the videos and photos, and if you have no experience with that, it can be really overwhelming. And so Baden helps her clients like build that narrative for her on social. So that's how.
And she's amazing. And so we all I want to like publicly thank her for introducing you to me and you to the I Was Supposed to Have a Baby community.
Yeah.
So okay, so jump right in. I mean, you are obviously the founder, you are the director, you are the founder of Day One Fertility, but that is not the beginning of your story. The beginning of your story starts before then. So take us back.
Okay. I feel like you might feel like this too, which is like you've told your story a million times over that you feel like you're just running it really fast. So can you just interrupt me if I just skip over something? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, like, for me, it really started back in 2017. I have a 6.5-year-old son. I got pregnant with him without assistance. I had no education around my fertility or really the infertility space because, like, why would I? And great pregnancy, shitty delivery, but like he came out and he's perfect. And like I was carried on. And 2 years after that, as the 2 year gap is like, the society comes in and is like, when you having another one? And I was like, yeah, this makes sense. I'm going to have another one. He's 2. And we got pregnant again, like super quickly. But that's sort of when the story takes this turn, which was in 2019 in October at 6 months, my water broke. Like completely just like out of thin air. My water broke and we ended up delivering her stillborn.
Hi, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and so at the time, though, I still didn't think we had any fertility issues. I just thought this was like a really rare case and it was just a one off. So I wasn't stressed about like not getting pregnant again. Obviously, we were mourning the loss of, we named her Ruby, and we were mourning her, and we went into COVID, and it was just like a really crazy time. And we tried it home for a year. We weren't getting pregnant, and I was like, this is weird. We get pregnant so fast. And that's when we started like our IVF journey. And I was somebody that went into IVF like, I just need a little help. I'm going to throw money at the problem, like one and done. My friend like had an IVF round, got 5 normal embryos, had a baby. I was like, I have a baby. Like we just need a little bit of help. Yeah. So fast forward to today, we've done 4 rounds of IVF. So it's been 4.5 years. And through that IVF journey, I've had an ectopic where they've taken out my right tube. And then we've had 2 miscarriages with D&Cs.
Oh my goodness.
And it's just been like this crazy whirlwind of treatment. So, and when you say you've done 4 rounds of IVF, like, I took a year off in between those times because I was like, you know what, we seem to get pregnant without IVF, so maybe we don't need IVF. And we went to 3 different clinics because you keep kind of figuring it out and like rejigging things. And so it got like really complicated. And I'll say that like my biggest issue in IVF specifically was like we weren't getting a lot of eggs because I have a low AMH, which I know doesn't mean you can't get pregnant, but it does indicate that you're going to have a lower response level to the drug. So we weren't getting, I think the most I ever got was 5, but I never made normal embryos. So it just was getting very exhausting. And in terms of work, I was actually corporate for the majority of my journey. For the first 2 years, I was working in corporate, and I was like, there's no one in Canada specifically that was like really talking about the like real raw behind the scenes. So I launched a podcast 3 years ago. It got a lot of great attention, and off the side of my desk, I was like coaching women because I ended up getting a life coach, and she doesn't even have kids. She's not in fertility, and she completely shifted the way in which I viewed my journey and like my situation and my circumstance. And I was able to like really prioritize my mindset. So when all these losses were happening or all these decisions were being made, I felt like I was handling them in a like totally different way. And I was doing it with gratitude.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me pause you for just one
There you
second.
go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So just to dig a little bit deeper into the emotions, because I think like that'll help sort of, set up where you are right now. So to go back, you have, a son who's incredible and amazing, no issues getting pregnant, and then from that point on, like you just think everything's going to be great, everything's going to be good, and you've just run into one roadblock after another, after another, after another, heartache after heartache after heartache. Nothing is going the way it's planned. I'm curious, like you mentioned this woman, this life coach. I'm going to get to that in a second, but like, just how are you emotionally during all of this? And like, how did, how was your husband? Like, how were the two of you in this process?
Thank you for asking that. I feel like most people, we always skip to the end, and like, this is a great question. So, I think that at the beginning of my journey, I was very naive and really like numb to like the whole, like, I just was like, it's just a one-off. These are one-off. Like, that was kind of my, like, I am a master compartmentalizer. I'm really good at it. Basically just because I had to be growing up, and it really like was a tool that I used to my advantage and my disadvantage. And so I just was able to put my shit like in lanes. But my husband is a very positive person and just always believed we would get there. So I'm someone where my pattern was like, I'm gonna go dark for like 4 days. Like my pattern was always in the loss of like, I'm just gonna go dark. I'm not gonna talk to anyone. I'm gonna like basically drink and watch Netflix. And then I would like reemerge and be like, okay, what are we doing next? And I was parenting. So like it was always this, I don't think I was, the truth is, I don't think at the time, at the beginning of my journey, I was really ever able to fully go to emotions that I was at because there's too much happening for me. So, but I will say it was overwhelming. Like I couldn't really figure out how to do everything. And that's when I met the life coach, like 2 years in, because I just was, like it just felt overwhelmed. Mostly I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean, to be faced over and over with being told no, effectively, like, no, this is not working. No, it didn't work. Or like, there's this glimmer of hope. You got pregnant, but oh, there's a loss. Or you got pregnant. Oh, it's an ectopic. Like, these are devastating pieces that
Yeah.
anyone who would go through this would like have to take a moment of like, whoa, what is this? And like, yeah, the goal obviously is to have another child, but like, whoa, it's been a lot.
I think
um
I'll just say, and I don't know if I know you can maybe relate to this. It's like because we had a living child or toddler at the time, a lot of doctors were like, they were using, like, I would just be like, well, of course this is going to work. Like, I have a baby. So, like, I think that there wasn't a fear in me the same, I think, when you're going through primary where you're like, is this ever going to happen? It was just like, oh, like, how, there was more confusion, I think, like, how is this not working? Like, I have this baby, and I think that's one of the more painful parts about secondary infertility, where you're like really confused as to like what's happening, and then there's this like real belief that it kind of can happen until it starts to not happen. And I think there wasn't an acceptance yet in me of like, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm even fully there yet of like accepting like that this is happening, because you're just kind of like, I have to keep moving forward.
I 100% I relate to that. For those of you out there who don't know my story, I had, you know, Emily's talking about how she had a child at home, no issues, everything was fine, and then, you know, all of these issues. For me, I had three children, and then it was only after the third, when we were trying for the next, that I I had four second trimester losses in a row, all without explanation. Again, like, I just kept losing these babies, one after another after another. There were other pieces to my fertility story, but this specific idea of what you're talking about right now, of like, well, it worked already, so of course it's going to work. Like, so you just keep, so you kind of like just keep going. You don't like, almost don't even pay attention to it. Like, yes, grieving, like, yes, it's awful, yes, it's horrible, but be like, this has got to work
Yeah.
because it worked already. So why is it not
Yeah.
working now?
And like, what have I not figured out yet? You know, who have I not spoken to yet? And look, I think that like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I don't, but I think within your community, right, there's this idea of having a lot of children, and so I think there must have been also this idea of like, well, three should be enough. And I think there's a world in my world where it's like, well, aren't you just be grateful and like that you have one, at least you have one, you know? And I think that's also this, I've been like, go back and forth with this, like, I think a positive part about secondary is you have a living child, so I do think gratitude for me personally in my journey has been one of the biggest tools that I've really used. And even when we're in with clients that I work with that are in like primary, like, we gotta find gratitude. Like, we have, to me, I understand when you hear that, it can feel like a challenge, but I really think it's part of the keys that can like keep us moving.
Totally. And you know, as you said, even in primary, I always believe, like, you know, there have to be these anchors. Like, you could just be really loving that like really hot steaming cup of tea that you have in the
Yeah.
morning, right? Like
Yeah.
you could just be loving the fact that
Yeah.
it's not raining
Yeah.
today. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be anything really big. It doesn't have to be these grandiose moments. It can just be the here and now of like, oh, like my back isn't hurting this
Yeah.
morning. Like, you
Yeah.
know, even just like small things.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so tell us, okay, so you're at this place where things are just not going and not going and not going, and there were disappointments after disappointments after disappointments.
Mhm.
What happened next?
In my
In
personal life or my
yes,
in my
in
personal
your
life.
story.
So I know because they just go hand in hand. In my so what happened was in the summer of 2023 we had our latest miscarriage during the summer, and we were gearing up for our fifth round of IVF, and we ended up finding out that Evan's sperm was like not testing well. He had like quite high DNA frag, and we were like, well, I'm gonna get like, if I'm lucky, 4 to 5 eggs, and are we gonna do it with his sperm like that? And I was like, no, like I really don't want to do that. Evan didn't want to do it, so we're like, let's do everything we can to optimize his sperm, and we'll retest it, and then we'll see. And during that kind of break, so it was like September, let's say, my 39th birthday was November, and essentially we got a hotel room, we went out for drinks, and I just like, okay, you know the drunk in high school where like you like get drunk and like your thoughts are just so big and they're like you just are crying like super drunk, like I don't know, a boy didn't look at you like right, and like your whole night was just like completely ruined and you just thought your whole life was like over. Do you know that kind of
Okay,
drunk?
I can't speak to that personally, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So I have no idea what happened. I was having like a really good night. We were like at the bar, and something like a weight, it was like a higher power just like came into me and was like, this might not work. Like, it's been 4 years, like nothing is working. And I don't think I've ever gotten to that point in my journey to be like, wait a second, like, no, it actually might, like, it really might not. Like, I have to be open to that. And I was just like, we went into the hotel room, and I swear the neighbors must have thought I was something like someone died, because I was like hysterical. It was like the grief of 4 years just like blew up in this hotel room. And I just was like, I don't have it in me to keep going. Like, I don't want to keep going like this anymore. Like, basically, I have like maybe one more push, but like, I want my life back. And like, I think I'm just have to live with this grief of like it not working. Like, I don't know. I think that we give up so much of our life for this pursuit, and I get it. Like, I totally understand it, but I also understand this idea of like, you know, I want, I, I want my life, I want my shit back. I want my
Yeah,
life back. And,
yeah,
and no, I don't want to say I want it back. I want it forward, you know, like, I think that I've done an amazing job. I think I've created an amazing business. I think that the work that I do is so powerful in the sense of mindset. And like, I really feel proud of the way me and Ev have like held our marriage together. Like, I feel good. Like, even in the heartbreaks, I feel okay. But I want to like not talk about it in my life
yeah,
anymore. You know, I want a new want a new content.
yeah.
You know, like something new, something fresh. And also like my husband, like basically like to be his sperm on point, like we weren't enjoying, he can't enjoy himself, and we bond over music, and so it just was feeling like we're exhausted.
Yeah.
So after I have my high school drama boyfriend cry.
I love it. By the way, I've had many of those cries. They just weren't like
in high school, they weren't like those big moments. Like they were much later on in life over many different points in my life. Just weren't in high school. But yes, keep going.
Yeah, like I just, do you know those points where like all that mattered in your life was this, like it was like the biggest thing in your life, like that it just felt like, yeah, like anyways. My Esther's in the room. Anywho, essentially we like came to, and in December of this year we were like, look, like we need to I have to open myself to other options. Evan was already, like Evan would have adopted 2 years ago. Evan would have done donor like he's, the truth of the matter is he's just more open. And I wasn't. Like I was like, it has to be my eggs, it has to be your sperm, we have to keep going, we have this, like, how can we build our family when we have Ryder and introduce another, like I couldn't get my head around it. But I'm turning 40 in November, and I was like, I'm not doing this in my 40s. And essentially we decided in January of this year that we're going to just look at all the different other ways in which we can grow the family without the pressure of making the decision, but just start to like research these other options. So we researched stopping altogether, or like we took time talking to stop altogether, trying another round with my eggs, adoption and donor, and egg donor, because we have both issues now, like male and egg issues, sperm and egg issues. But our doctor was like, you get 2 eggs, so it's better, like you'll get more of a chance at this point. Let's just try egg donor first before we do that with sperm. And I couldn't, anyways, we did an adoption course, wasn't for us right now. Okay. And then we started to look into egg donor. And then this is sort of the whole reason that we're here. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
So what happened with egg donor was, I will say this, and this is what I worked through in couples therapy, is that any decision I went with, I'm going to have grief. So I'm going into this donor journey with like really understanding that like there's a high chance that I'm going to love, be obsessed. I know whatever baby comes to me is supposed to be my baby, and like is the baby I was always supposed to have. But there might be days that I have that grief comes up, that of the journey and the way this happened, and I have to accept that there's a level of grief I'm going to live with. And I think it would be no matter what, but I think egg donor, I had to really do like 5 months of work of like accepting the fact that like there is fear, I have fear around this, and that I'm letting go of the way in which I imagined our journey to look, and the way in which I imagined our family to be built, which at this point was IVF. Actually, I've already like gotten to that point. So the thing that was giving me pause on donor is that I was meeting with all these agencies and like looking at all of these, I was basically Tindering.
Yeah.
I was basically learning what Tinder was, but for an egg donor.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anyone, and I don't want to say that looked like me, because that was another thing. I spoke to a lot of people in doing donor that was like, you're not trying to find a carbon copy of you. But I didn't feel a connection like with anyone. And so I have this unbelievable client of mine, and was doing donor, and she was like, we used a Jewish donor agency. And I was like, oh, like that exists? I didn't even know. She's like, yeah, it exists. So I got connected. And what was really interesting about this like contact and like what kind of unfolded was, and you know, we've talked about this before, but like I'm not a practicing Jew. I connect into my Judaism through camp. I didn't have a bar mitzvah, and I just didn't like, I'm a tradition. Like I like the traditions, but I never have felt like a full pull towards it. However, I got connected in, and all these, Jewish donors were coming up, and I saw myself in them, and I had this level of ease that, like, even though it won't be biologically mine, it kind of will be, because we're all from the same starting point. And if I ever went to Israel, or like we ever went to, did a bar mitzvah, like anything like that, that is where they're from. They are from that is them. And so it kind of felt like there was a piece of my heritage that was part of our family in this way. And I never realized that was important to me. I didn't realize that was important to me until we started on this journey.
It's so interesting because people, when we hear people talk about donors, using donors, it's often very much like, talk to me about the physical characteristics. Like, people often want to try to match those physical characteristics as much as possible, so that the average person on the street, when they see your child, don't immediately know that there's something different, so
Yeah.
that there isn't that like immediate sort of, it's always like, and you can have this in families, right? Even families where the children are, biologically from those two parents, you could have one child with red hair and everybody else has brown hair, and everyone's like, oh, where did they come from? The mailman? And like, ha ha ha, right? So I, I hear a lot from people who are making these donor decisions, that they want to try to match as much as possible. And then there are other things that come up. There are the health considerations. You want
Yeah.
to obviously try to, get someone as healthy as possible. Maybe I was speaking to somebody this morning, and she was saying, it's our podcast episode that's going to be dropping later this week. She's short, so she picked a donor that was tall because she didn't want her kids to be vertically challenged. Like people think
No,
about all
there's
those
some
things.
positive things. Like our donor is like super hot. I now I just joke where I'm like, well, if they can't have my genes, like, why wouldn't I upgrade them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and now we're having, like, now I just have fun with it. But like, yeah, you might as well. If it's not going to be you, why are you picking the things about you don't like?
Totally. So it's so interesting. The reason why I wanted you to come and speak, was that this for you was a process of sort of, on some level, like reconnecting with your Judaism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think just acknowledging that is a part of me, and however we practice it, that's like where I come from. And I think that I've never really had to think that way before. And I think when you're really having to give up your biology, other things kind of start to come to play, that you're like, well, what could I give, and what part of me could I keep? What part of me
Yeah.
could I keep?
Yeah.
And that feels like part of me. I'm keeping my like my generational line sort of like intact. And look, like, I don't think I'm like an anomaly here. I think anyone that's doing egg donor would like to wants to keep their heritage. It's just, for me, I didn't realize, like, as soon as the donors started to come up, I already felt the connection into a bunch of them. And it was really because of that. I mean, I just think that when you meet strangers that are from the same heritage as you, there's like that instant bond, that instant connection. So anyways, that's sort of, yeah, it's been a cool part of my journey, for sure. I think there's a question here.
Yeah. But before we get to the question, what I was going to say is that it is absolutely the case that, that is one of the other things that people definitely look for. Like they want someone, if you come from Spain, you want someone, ideally, you want an egg donor from Spain. If you have, a Christian background, you are like, not always, but that might be one of the things that you're looking for. So I think like it was another way to kind of bring connection community. I love the way you share that.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so the question here is, this is a person who she's asking just generally about the donor process. She's saying she worries about family history, specifically like mental illness that may not be disclosed or you may not know. Was this something you considered when choosing a donor?
Yeah. I think that when you choose a donor, you have to accept that you won't know everything. You get to know enough. Like there was enough like information and like family history. Like it felt enough when I dove into it for me to like okay moving forward. Um the way that I've like rationalized it to myself is like you don't know like I don't know my mental health like of my like great grandfather or like I don't know certain things about my own biological family. And even if you do know, they could still turn out completely different from that. So I've tried to lean into we only know sort of as much as we know anyways. And that I felt like they gave me enough information for me to be comfortable moving forward. And the other thing I'll say is like, they do a lot of genetic testing on Ev and then on the donor, and so like we matched, and yeah, I like to look at both sides and not make things. My biggest learning overall has really been like, there's no right and wrong. There's no like finding all the information or finding no information. There's always this like blurriness in my journey recently that I've like accepted, like that I'm just like, no, I'm there's no clarity. And like, I understand that I have mixed emotions going into this. Like there's no, I'm not going to sit here saying that I'm walking through fire. Like 100% I'm walking through fire. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot more unknowns. Yeah, but like this is the right move to just move me forward. And so I just am walking the walk forward.
I I love that. And I'll also add, even when you are marrying someone, right? You don't necessarily know any of the things that they're going to have,
Yeah,
in the future, right? You're taking the person as they are and you know their past, but you don't know if, God forbid, they're going to develop any kind of illness, injury, lose their job, there are a million things. Like none of us can predict the future. So there are always things that we don't know. But you're right in that, either before people get married or as you're considering, building a family, there are genetic testing, that is offered and done pretty standardly now,
yeah,
so that you can get a handle on the genetics as much as possible. But there are always going to be things you don't know. Always, always.
yeah, yeah. I think like a big narrative that I had to really, really, and I'm still working on this, is like Ryder has a part of his personality that's mine, that's like me, whatever that means. Now I'm learning that I put up with because I'm like, well, it's me. Like, if he's like whiny about something, I'm like, I get that why the kid's whiny about that. Like, I would be whiny about that. And so I feel my patience for him is quite high because there's a part of him that I feel is me. And so I get into this thing of like, well, am I going to have patience if this, you know, um, my second baby that's donor conceived is a different way, and if it was my biology, then I would be like, well, it's mine. Even that's the word, like the language isn't ideal in that sense, but these are the things that like I've had to really work through and accept and be like I'm it's okay. like the love. I guess my circle out to try to finish this thought is it's really challenged my definition of what love is, and it's opened my mind to really what real love looks like. And I don't think I was able to do that, like expose that part of me as much as through donor, and like through this idea that is not binary. It's not linear, and like love is like love, and it comes in so many different ways. And like I'm so proud of myself that I've been able to like work through some of those definitions that I've like held in this like box for myself. And even if this outcome, there is no baby with this outcome, the fact that I'm able to like normalize and get on board with and like be open to this is already a win for me. And I just feel like the more I talk about it, the more I'm open about it, the more I'm part of the community that's gone through, donor in any way, any form. And I hear the stories of how, like, there is no, this isn't the connection is the same.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I've just also really leaned on trusting people on the other side. Like I've been like, I'm not there, but like I'm trusting you and what you're saying. And I'm so fortunate to have so many amazing families and women that have like picking up my call at 11 p.m. when I'm like, I don't know, I'm so scared. And they're like, just do it. And I'm like, okay. So it's not clear. These are really, really, really hard decisions to make. That was really long. I don't even know where I went with that.
No, you went exactly where I was going to lead you, which is, to the what advice do you have for people who are considering this, or, even beginning this journey? Because there are so many unknowns. Like, and I heard already like pieces of this answer, which is, lean into the murkiness, lean into the gray, know that you're not going to get all the answers, lean on, other people who've been there before. What else?
Oh my God, those are so good.
You said them. You said them.
It's a really good recap. Like I think that there's no wrong decision. I think that there's no right decision, there's no wrong decision. And I think that Jay Shetty actually said this, and I just think it's resonated with me so much, which is like people get really stuck in the like weeds of a decision and like is it the right decision? Is it the wrong decision? Is it the right decision? The wrong decision? And the question really becomes like, what is going to move you forward and deal with the rest? And so me and I've like zoomed out of our fertility journey, and we're like, we have one more shot at this. Like, we're not doing this more. What's going to give us the biggest shot? What's going to let us like move forward in a faster way? And that for us was really seriously considering to use an egg donor. Like, I've never gotten 10 eggs. We've never made a normal embryo. Like, well, we have, he's sleeping, but like, so I've been like, okay, I'm going to choose this, and it's to move me forward. And I'm going to deal with the messiness that comes with that decision versus stuck in all my fears and the like weeds of it all, because it puts you in purgatory.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. There is a lot that can keep a person there. There is a lot of stuff. There are a lot of questions. There's a lot of stuff. There are a lot of procedures. There are a lot of people to talk to. There are a lot of doctors. There are a lot of agencies. There are a lot of choices. There is a lot. But the zooming out of, well, what do you want? And at some point, if you actually want that thing, you have to actually go instead of just staying and like spinning your wheels.
Yes. Yes, and I think you have to do the work that, like, I think it's like I did all that work and then I was still in this, like, and that's like, so I felt like I did all the research, all the talks, all of that, and then I was still bouncing like this. And that's when I had to just move. I just had to like rip the band-aid off and be like, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Emily, I cannot thank you enough for opening up, for being so vulnerable and just sharing the inner workings of, your decision, your relationships, your, trying to grapple with this decision. I am sure that there are people who are going to want to reach out to you and talk more. First of all, can they? And second of all, what is the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, of course. Anyone can reach out. Day one fertility, like across the board. You can DM me or you can email me, like at Emily at Day One Fertility. Kind of check out what that looks like, and I'm like excited to just be part of the donor community. I think is really cool. It's a really new chapter, so I love like meeting everybody in there.
And they're going to love you too. I mean, I'm sure they already do. And look, you and I are going to have a separate conversation in the
Yeah,
future, and we're going to talk all about day one and your mindset and the
yeah,
way you have gotten yourself through with the support of others, but that you have gotten yourself through these years,
yeah,
these long, difficult fertility years. That is another conversation. Stay tuned, everyone, because that will
yeah.
be coming up at some point.
Yes.
But in the meantime, thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I wish you the best of luck with everything in this process, getting through it. Number one, a sane and whole person. And number two, I hope and pray, none of us can predict the future, but I always say that I hope and pray. I'm a hopeful person. So I hope that this works out in the way that you want.
Thank
But
you.
what I know based on our conversations here and our conversations prior is that no matter what happens, you will be able to get through this.
Thank
And
you.
that this is what this overall fertility community does, right? We support each other through whatever comes.
Thank you. No, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for having such a safe space for me to share in this way. And I am so happy we met and that we can keep the conversation going. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. And yeah, it's always such a gift to be sharing and having these conversations truly. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.